Direct from historic downtown Orange, California, it's time for the Bob Gurr Show. From undersea adventures to highways in the sky, he's done it all. And now, here's your host, the man, the myth, the Disney legend, Bob Gurr.
Hi kids, here we are again on the Bob Gurr Show. I love to do interviews. You will not guess who I've got as my guest today. I'd like you to meet DJ Lance Rock.
Hello, friends. Hi,
All
Bob.
right.
How are you?
So I go right to the point.
Let's do it.
I really like to know how successful people really got that way. When I take a look at the things that you do all the time and have done, you got a successful variety of live shows over many years. Why, you're even a Funko Pop. My goodness. One of the keys is you worked with Scott Schultz for a long time. That got you into Gabba Gabba, the Aquabats, even Knott's Berry Farm last summer. You love live entertainment, both preschool and parents. We're focusing on the 3 E's of education. Make that a lot of fun. And then you specialize, I would have to say, in clean, silly, fun, entertainment, lighthearted, and dancing.
That's
your specialty.
That's pretty
Also,
accurate.
music and singing has always been central to your entertainment. That's kind of a
And
central
I like to
part.
dance.
And from the 1990s all the way up to today, actor, producer, film and TV, DJ Lance. You have a product line. You sell products, all kinds of stuff.
Merchandise. we'll call it.
Merchandise, okay. But here's the key thing I like. You donate your time. Make a wish and Habit for Humanity.
Yes.
Those are some very, very key interests. So I really like to get into how a person becomes successful. And I have to go back into what I call the seeds of your nature. Knowing that the nurture came along to guide you as you went along. And I do like to ask people to be around like 5 years old. Sometimes I'll ask a little kid who parents want them to be an Imagineer. And I'll suddenly look at the kid and I'll go, hey, 5 years old, what turned you on? And they'll only give you 2 answers. One kid will stare at the father or mother and go, what did he say? And the other kid will go, oh man, let me tell you about it. And then the parents go, oh, let me tell you about it. So there's sometimes there'll be people that don't have that spark, and there's some people have that spark and it just comes on like a fireball at right around about 5 years old. Because they've gotten a few years being used to discovering they were a human being. And then there's all these other things that you kind of remember, but it's not complete. So in other words, I want you to help me with the little snippets, the little seeds. Quite early, you'll remember something. You remember a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Doesn't make any sense. And sometimes it's hard to look back and figure out how did it all tie together. But those are the seeds. These are the seeds that get planted. And if you follow me, the idea, you evolve an MO of your life that lets you be successful. And it looks so easy. I want to know.
Okay, well, let's go here,
All right.
Bob. Thank you. That was quite a lot. That was quite a build-up here. I will say, first and foremost, everything I do, whether it's, collaborative or my own, surrounds music. Music has just been an integral part of everything. And I am an actual DJ. I DJ'd for many years in Los Angeles, and I've DJ'd, across the country as well. And I just love music. And I remember, my parents both, my father was in the Army, and he was stationed over in Germany for a while. And then they were like really into jazz and all this stuff. So there was always music when I was a kid, and growing up, we'd hear, like Sunday music, and we'd hear like Handel's Messiah, but then we ended up hearing, Nina Simone or Nancy Wilson, who was one of my mom's favorites, or Johnny Mathis, and they would just mix it up. And I'm from St. Louis, And so we would always listen to the Fifth Dimension. We were really excited because some of them were from there, and music just always seemed such like a magical thing. And we would drive around in the family car, and they'd play music. And I just remember this like it was yesterday. We were driving, and that tune, Popcorn by Hot Butter, came on. Boop, 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 boop. And I was hooked the second I heard it. And that was the first record I ever had because my parents went out and bought that for me. That was the very first
About how old were you when that happened?
4 or 5.
Okay.
4 or 5. I just remember I second I heard that I was just drawn to it like a moth to a flame. And so I always had music around. But then, back when we were kids in the 70s, we had really special cartoons at that time too. You have, like there was a Jackson 5 cartoon, all the Sid and Marty Krofft stuff, all the Hanna-Barbera stuff, the Jay Ward stuff, Rocky and Bullwinkle and stuff. We just had really smart, funny cartoons, but that also opened the door or showed me the pathway to the past and the earlier stuff like the Fleischer Brothers, the Popeye, and the Betty Boop. And that's my mom's name, so we always had that as well. So animation, music, and then reading. And my mom would read to me at an early age. We would sit down and read together. So by the time I started kindergarten, I could already read.
Oh, really?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Well, this is very key. A lot of kids, they go through, we have to learn reading and writing and all that. Unless there's some subject that's worth reading at that time, the interest gets kind of lost. But you apparently had enough visual stimuli quite early that when you got a chance to learn to read, and obviously your parents are a very great help in doing that.
Yes.
Now there's music history you can dive backwards and go back into, because now you can read your way back into before you were there.
Absolutely, and that's what happened with animation as well, because I didn't know a lot of that stuff. I just know what I was seeing, and I liked it, but then I wanted more. There was some new stuff, but then it's like, oh, check these out. And so, like I ended up, I really liked Popeye, I really liked Underdog, I really liked, of course, Mickey Mouse and Goofy and Donald Duck, and those were my friends.
Oh, I have another question off the wall here. See if there's any little spark that you can recall. I ask people, when did you realize you were a human being and alive?
Wow.
There's always something. There's always something. It's a little snippet. It's usually visual. It leads to a few more of those. That leads up to the 4.5, the 5. That you really know what you're looking at.
That's a really great question, Bob.
Can you give it a thought?
I'm going to give that a thought for a second. I guess I knew I was human when I tried to swallow a quarter, and my dad had to hold me upside down and hit me on the back to cough it out. And that was about 3 years old.
Okay, just the sample of, I can eat a quarter. It's a silver cookie.
Yeah, I don't even remember putting it in there, but I just remember being yanked up. And
okay, but see, that's these little snippets. In other words, it's a quick vision of something. And you're collecting those over a period of time, and then they might add up. But let's say the things that turned you on are the things that frighten you to death. These are the little things of that first path to success that you would be comfortable with and use.
Yeah, I remember when my mom and dad came back from Germany, well, my family, I was a little baby, and we were in Florida for a second. Then we went and stayed with my grandmother, my mom's mom, before we got our own place in St. Louis. And I remember they had a big German Shepherd named Rex, and then they had a white dog named Snowball. And I just remember always playing with the animals was something that I was like, wow, this is really cool. Like, I didn't even know they were kind of different. They were just like part of my family, and it's like, why doesn't the dog talk,
Yeah. All right.
But so I think early on, just being exposed to all of that stuff really imprints on a child. So because my mom read to me, I always had this love of reading. Because I was around animals when I was a little kid, I'm not afraid of animals, and I really love animals, and you know, and music and the other stuff as well. But I don't know. I remember little things. I remember, you know, my sister and I used to play.
That's what I'm looking at. Those little, I call the little seeds.
My sister and I used to play in, you know, the big front living room a lot, and just, you know, we didn't really have costumes, but just some sort of make-believe fantasy thing we would do. And, you know, my parents stopped us at one point because they're like, oh, you need to watch this. And it was the moon landing. I was 4 when that happened.
Oh, I remember that too. Yeah, I just stared at the TV. Did you just see what happened on the?
But I didn't know what it was. I mean, I know it was something that was like important and cool, but I didn't get the enormity of it until later, you know. But it was cool.
Yeah. Okay. But see, yeah, if you were there on that TV when that happened, and you don't know what it was till later, but I was way ahead of you in years, and I knew that was coming. And the fact it actually did work. In fact, I remember the look on Walter Cronkite's face, you know, the guy from CBS.
I know.
He literally took his glasses off and said, like, I couldn't believe it. And it was vivid, absolutely vivid. Okay, now you mentioned music. Obviously, I can see now that you had situations that just grounded you absolutely perfect with a very connected family. Animals were not frightening, even though probably from your size and the size of the dog that you mentioned, Rex is a pretty big dog.
I could almost ride him.
Yeah. And then almost a constant diet of visuals and music and individual artists. What about that time that you saw that maybe you could do that too? Tell me about that.
You know what it was? When Sesame Street first came out, you know, it was something where you can go on a field trip without leaving your house. So it's like, we're going to go to the country, we're going to go to a farm, and it was really long takes. And there was something probably about 20 years ago, which was, it was a little disappointing to me because they were talking about the Sesame Street that originally came out. They were going to call it old school and put a disclaimer that said it's not suitable for today's audiences, because there were all these long takes and it wasn't really that rapid, you know, edit like ADHD kind of thing. And I think growing up without all those distractions and that noise, we were able to just explore and figure stuff out, you know? And I think it's not just because it was the 70s, but it was like they were just trying so many things. There were all these possibilities and everyone was supportive of everything. I remember I really liked Super Sugar Crisp. You know, and it had Sugar Bear on it, but they were doing this big push for ecology, you know, and you could save all the proof of purchase seals, and I mailed them in, and then I got this gigantic ecology flag, you know, the green and white one, and I had that on my wall, so now I kind of became a little ecologically aware at the time, you know, through, you know, cereal.
Yeah, so you sound like in your childhood you were exposed to a big variety of things. That what I want to know then, at that point, when did you see that you could actually do what you saw on TV?
Gosh, that's I don't know. It was much later because I just enjoyed being exposed and just having, I wanted to kind of experience everything that was going on. So it was really great, you know. You could ride bikes back then. I mean, we did a lot of stuff that I would never do now. Like we moved briefly when my dad got out of the Army to Leavenworth, Kansas. So I lived in Leavenworth, you know, up until like 1979 or 80. So I was there for like a good 6 or 7 years as well. And it was great because, you know, where the federal penitentiary is, they had this giant field, and then they brought in one buffalo, then they brought in a female buffalo, and then they had some kids, and so we got to watch that grow back at that time. But everything was really just kind of, you know, slow paced, except for you could get 5 people in a car and go 100 miles down the road because it's in Kansas and it's flat, but and no seat belts and stuff like that that you would never do. And so I just experienced a lot of different things, but I never thought, wow, I want to go towards making music, or oh, I want to do this. But I did write a lot, but I just wrote for my own, entertainment. I could make up my own stories. I didn't really think about it until later. It was just like, wow, life is great, and I don't know why. It wasn't really until I was in high school, and then like when the '80s came and all that explosion of music, all the new wave stuff, and that's when I was like, I want to follow this.
Yeah.
So
All of a sudden, the '80s, everybody's, now it's time. Everybody can explore now. We don't have to follow any more rules. We just do it.
And we were so lucky, Bob, because like you think of all these bands now, they were all so different, but they all had a place there.
Yeah.
So you could have, George Clinton doing his stuff, but then you could have something like Dexy's Midnight Runner. So you could have, I remember, especially in Leavenworth, we would just turn on the radio before we'd go to school, and the radio station, you could hear Charlie Rich Behind Closed Doors, and then you could hear Gil Scott-Heron. It was just, and so that seemed normal to me. So I always just had a real open mind, and it wasn't until like the '80s where I was like, I'm gonna focus and like, this is my passion. This is what I want to do. I just enjoyed all of this stuff.
Okay. Amplify a little bit more now. About what age was that when you just started to see that possibility?
It was later. It was like 15.
15.
Yeah, because until then I was just absorbing stuff. I was just like, I want music. I love records. I'm trying to do this. I want to learn all this stuff. But I wasn't, I love the Isley Brothers, but I never thought I'm going to be one of the Isley Brothers. I just really enjoyed it. I liked, I had a bunch of the books, Alfred Hitchcock and the Three Investigators. So all these like mysteries, or Encyclopedia Brown. So I liked trying to solve stuff, but I never thought, I want to do that. But what I did think is like, wouldn't it be cool if they did this kind of story? So I would write my own stories, but I didn't think I'm going to try to pursue this and get these published. I just wrote them to entertain myself, or like maybe show one of my friends.
Oh, see, there's one of these seeds that came a little bit later, but the idea that you don't just look at the world and just be in the world. You saw a world you could create your part just for you.
Yeah.
And then at some time later, it was like, oh, I could create it for everybody else too.
Exactly. I just didn't think of that. Yeah. Then once I thought of that, it's
Yeah.
like, wow, that's great.
Well, tell me a little bit more about that period, because you had to make this changeover from being the absorber to the doer.
I think it was, it really did help being in Leavenworth, because it's shocking it was in Kansas, but because, the federal penitentiaries there and all this stuff, there were people from all over the world. So I had in my, like my 6th grade class, I had people from Afghanistan, Korea, China, like it was, Puerto Rico. It was a very, Venezuela. It was a nice mixture of people. And so that was great having that sort of, I don't want to say multicultural thing. It was just all kinds of different people,
So
and we were all in the same class, which was really great.
Literally had the whole world around you.
Absolutely.
Rather than being just one group of people.
And got to learn from that. But we were like in the the Midwest, like with, all these sunflowers and wheat. But I think it was also like the early days of disco, And so that was, again, music bringing people together. So we'd have these little parties, and like all these friends would come together, and we'd start dancing, and then we'd talk about different things that we wanted to do. And I think having that community of friends and just thinking, oh, you like movies? Oh, maybe I'll check out more movies. Maybe I'll do, like it just started making the world bigger, and realizing there was more stuff out there to explore.
Yeah, because I do like to ask people, when I see they're very, very social, at what point did the ease with, when you're a child, the big people are kind of scary outside your parents in a way. When do you be comfortable with them? And then if you grow past that, everybody you meet is somebody to interface with. Does that happen to you?
You know what? It's funny because people always kind of get the wrong impression of me. I'm more of an introvert, actually, but
I'm glad you said that. I'm suspecting you are.
So I like to observe things most of the time, but this is good. I can engage one-on-one, and then if I have to do it with a big group, that's kind of my job. So I can do it. But when when I'm out of the suit, I'm off the clock, so it's not as natural. Some people have more of the gift of gab than like you. Your kind of comes natural to you.
Well, I'll share something with you. Everybody thinks I'm an extrovert. I'm not. I'm an introvert who wants to sit quietly and think and figure stuff out that somebody wants that nobody else knows how to do. But over time, because of all the, Disneyland stuff, all the other stuff, you have to mix with a little bit more people. And then it gets to the point where, okay, I will extrovert for a day. Then I go home. And then pretty soon, we want you to do it for 3 days. Then you can go home. Now I get used to the fact that I can go back and forth between introvert and extrovert. Now, when you told me a few minutes ago about reading and then being able to do things your way, you see, that's the introvert side, which is the strong driver part.
Yeah.
I think in some people. And then once you get used to the extroverting part, if you get over the fact that, oh my God, I'm going to get awful deep into this stuff, then you just start to blossom. And that is just as comfortable as being home. Do you find something like that?
It's never comfortable, but I'm okay with it. It's here. Listen, this has taken me to so many amazing places. I'm sitting here talking with you now, so how can I be upset? It's definitely a blessing. It's just, you would think it would be like getting in a hot tub, and eventually you get used to it, and I never get used to it, but I don't mind it, and I'm real happy to sit here and talk to you. But I'm glad that you realize, that.
Well, I kind of had a sense of that. That's why I wanted to ask these kind of questions compared to the kind of questions you usually get. Because when I went back home and I looked at the Funko show so I could sit down and see what you did, I could only hear it from the backstage. I thought, oh my gosh, I never saw this raw enthusiasm running around at high speed on the stage. And then I started looking at your audiences, the little kids. Oh my gosh. And now to find out, yes, you really are an introvert at heart.
At heart. I'm gonna tell you what. I'll tell you another big influence. Bootsy Collins, who played with James Brown and then was an integral part of Parliament Funkadelic, that was the first concert I ever saw. My parents took my sister and I to see it in Kansas City. And it left such an impression on me that I ended up saying, I want him to be my father on Yo Gabba Gabba. So we got him to come and be my father. So I got to spend some time with him and hear all these great stories from him and learn all this stuff. But the presentation of that show is something that I wanted to always bring to what we're doing. So it's a kid's show, but we want this to be like, like I'm going to come out there like a rock star as well. Like it's going to be larger than life and like get these kids excited and inspired to be like, yeah, isn't this great? All right, you can go outside and dance. Hey, you can collect bugs. Hey, it's awesome to read. And so we're trying to combine both of those things that way.
Okay. So, yes, I can. Hey kids, welcome to the Bob Gurr Show Theater. Come on in.